The first flakes of snow drifted across the battlements of Winterfell like wandering moths, pale against the dark stone sky. They melted as they landed, tiny pinpricks of damp that freckled the granite and the rough-hewn timber alike, leaving behind only the faintest shimmer before vanishing into the chill morning air. The old keep breathed mist. Every window, every arrow slit, every gap between age-warped shutters exhaled the slow, deliberate sigh of a castle settling into deep winter. Inside those walls, the day had only just begun, yet already the great courtyards rang with life. The clash of wooden practice swords, the barked orders of Ser Roderick's trainees, the clatter of hooves on frost-slick cobbles as grooms led shaggy northern coursers from the stables. Bran Stark felt the world humming beneath his feet long before he scaled the watchtower. He tasted the iron of the cold on his tongue, scented the smoke of kindling hearths, heard the gull cry of ravens wheeling somewhere above. Winterfell was awake. So was he. At 8, the age when boys of the South learned letters and numbers, Bran had been climbing for half his life, and each morning he sought a different vantage. A crumbled turret here, a weirwood's gnarled limb there, the steep gables above Maester Luwin's rookery whose slate shingles clacked underfoot like dragon scales. His mother disapproved, his father permitted, and Robb joked that the castle itself might sprout legs and wander off should Bran ever cease his spidering. But Bran never ceased. Not until that day. He chose a lesser tower first, the one the Masons dubbed Quiet Keep because its stairwell had collapsed decades ago. Rickety scaffolds still clung to its base, a reminder of a restoration long abandoned. Yet the real path lay outside, along crumbling merlons and dangling beams that required nimble leaps and iron nerve. Bran had both. Fingers numb beneath lambswool gloves, he hooked them through ancient arrow slits and hauled himself upward, boots finding purchase where only moss dared live. With each yard gained, Winterfell spread beneath him. The training yard where Jon drove a wooden sword against empty air, the glass gardens glittering like emerald lanterns, the Godswood's scarlet canopy stirring in a breeze too faint to feel. Beyond the walls, the King's Road carved a ribbon of gray through snow-dusted fields, leading south toward the neck and north toward the wall. Two directions that felt, to Bran's childish mind, like the borders of every tale worth telling. He paused atop a jutting stone outcrop to breathe. His heart drummed pleasantly, and the faint ache in his wrists made him smile. There was freedom in the heights, a secret whisper carried on the wind that no master-at-arms nor prudent mother could silence. From here he could see everything, almost. The highest tower, the first keep, loomed yet higher, its crown lost in low-hanging cloud. He would climb it later, he decided. First he must greet the world, and the world today meant visitors from the south. Word of their arrival had come with a thunder of hooves and banners the evening prior. King Robert Baratheon, all beard and booming laughter, had ridden through Winterfell's gatehouse like a conquering giant, sweeping Lord Eddard into a crushing embrace before demanding ale enough to drown an ox. His retinue followed. Lannisters in crimson and gold, Tyrells resplendent in green, sullen Stormlanders in black and yellow, and 100 lesser lordlings eager to claim they had ridden half the realm to pay respects. Tents sprang up beyond the walls like mushrooms after rain, their pennants snapping in the northern wind. Bran had watched from the battlements until the candles winked out and the torches guttered low. Now, in the hush before dawn's full bloom, the visitors still slept off their feasting, or so Bran guessed. The castle, though awake, held its breath around them. He clambered down, skittering across a mossy ledge, and landed lightly on the roof of the armory, slate creaking. Ahead, a stone buttress bridged two towers like an arm flung casually over a neighbor's shoulder. Bran scuttled across, mind half-plotting which chimney next might grant a better view. He did not see the watcher below, cloaked in shadow at the base of the library tower. Tyrion Lannister rubbed his hands together and blew into them, the breath steaming white. Travel north had always stung his joints. Something in the cold worked its way into bones and stayed there, but worse by far was the ache of being surrounded by so much height. Winterfell rose above him in jagged layers, each stone older than memory, and every staircase seemed designed for longer legs and straighter backs than his. He leaned against the library's stout oaken doorframe, listening to the faint rustle of parchment and the dry shuffle of the maester somewhere within. He had no true business here. A restless night and a sharper curiosity had driven him from his guest chamber before dawn, in search of secrets that might amuse. The night before, he had sat beside the Stark's bastard at table. Jon Snow, they called him, though the young man carried his shame with an iron pride, and gleaned a dozen small truths. Lord Eddard's household was honest to a fault, his family bound by ties stronger than Valyrian steel. Yet steel could bend if one found the right leverage. King Robert's offer to Lord Stark to leave Winterfell and serve as hand would stretch those ties to the breaking point, and Tyrion meant to see who might snap first. Not out of malice, or so he told himself. A mind needed exercise as surely as a body, and politics was the sport offered to clever cripples in a world that prized swords. Let the highborn in their gilded armor pretend to shape history with edged steel. Men like Tyrion shaped truth, and truth sharpened fear more cleanly than a blade. He left the library and used. Instead he wandered, letting his feet carry him through vaulted halls where tattered banners hung like ghosts, past the silent godswood where a single white face watched him with bleeding eyes, across courtyards still silvered by frost. He made note of servants' doors, of hidden postern gates, of narrow windows from which one might observe without being observed. Knowledge was coin. Knowledge freely given was squandered treasure, and so he hoarded it. Near mid-morning he discovered a spiral stair whose upper steps crumbled halfway to nothing, ending in a jagged hole that opened to empty air. The drop plummeted 5 stories into a lichened well of shadow. Someone once had attempted repair. Wooden planks lay rotting in the gloom, but the work had been abandoned. Tyrion peered down, fascinated. The North, for all its legends, was a place where even castles could die. A soft scuff above pulled his gaze skyward. A boy in gray climbed like a squirrel among the broken stones, lean limbs flashing, cloak snapping in the updraft. The Stark child, Bran, if memory served, a name old as the wall. Tyrion stepped back into the ruined stairwell's shelter and watched. Bran's face bore the fierce concentration of a painter at work. Each move flowed without pause, as though he danced to music only he could hear. The boy leapt lightly to a half-collapsed parapet barely wider than a handspan, arms windmilling once to keep balance, then scurried higher still. Tyrion felt an unexpected clench in his chest, half admiration, half envy. Tall folk wasted their height. This one used every inch of it, wielding limbs the way a poet wielded words. For a moment Tyrion fancied he could feel the stones beneath his own feet, cool and solid, while gusts of pale air whipped cloak and hair alike. For a moment he imagined himself unbound by crooked spine and mocking laughter, free to climb any wall he pleased. Bran vanished onto the roof above. Tyrion exhaled, a breath he hadn't realized he held. Curiosity pricked him. The boy would descend somewhere, and where he did, Tyrion meant to be waiting. Not stalking, simply asking. What drove a child to scale towers at dawn? What did he see from those heights? He circled the tower's base, following the geometry of ledges and gutters, mapping in his mind the likely path of descent. A jutting gargoyle here could serve as foothold. A broken scaffold there offered a bridge. The boy might choose any of a dozen routes, but men tended toward habit, children doubly so. Tyrion positioned himself near a stone chimney whose mortar gaps formed a ladder even he, with effort, might climb. Minutes passed. Voices drifted from the ward below. Lady Stark calling orders, hounds baying at the scent of newcomers' mounts. The distant clang of smiths hammering chainmail rings closed. Tyrion felt the weight of the day begin to settle. King's business, sister's whispers, father's expectations, and almost turned away. Then a boot scraped slate above. Tyrion looked up. Bran crouched on the roof edge, fingers gripping a rain-slick gutter. His cheeks were flushed rose. His breath misted in steady bursts. Before Tyrion could hail him, the boy swung down, dangling by one hand, and dropped lightly onto a narrow cornice 2 yards below. From there Bran stepped to a balcony's crumbling balustrade, landed cat-silent, and crouched again. Tyrion raised a hand. "Good morning, young Stark." His voice sounded small in the empty courtyard. Bran twisted. Surprise flared in blue eyes, swiftly flattened by practiced calm. He said nothing, but his head tilted in curious acknowledgement. An impressive climb, Tyrion went on, pitching his voice conversational, as though they stood at a feast table instead of opposite ends of a crumbling tower. Though my lord father always told me walls are built to keep men down as well as out. Bran's brows knit. Walls are for keeping warm, he countered, voice carrying easily in the still air. Else the wind howls inside. Tyrion laughed. Alder branches for a philosopher's tongue. Tell me, do your parents know you stray so high? Bran shrugged. Father says a climber must know his own grip. Mother says I must not fall. Wise woman, your mother. Tyrion took one step forward, then another until he stood at the balcony's edge, 10 feet below. The stones beneath his boots were damp. A slip would break bones. He fought the urge to crane his neck. Would you humor a dwarf's curiosity? What do you see from up there? Everything, Bran answered simply. The wall where it touches the sky, the sea of trees, the world. Tyrion's smile faltered. Everything, he echoed. For a heartbeat, he felt the gulf between them stretch wider than the gulf of years. The boy lived a life unmarked by scorned stares, by muttered jokes, by the quiet assumption that smaller meant lesser. A life of wind and stone and endless possibility. Tyrion's envy curdled in his throat. He placed a hand on the balustrade. Stone flaked away, damp grit staining his palm. Would you show me? He asked, and hated the pleading note that crept in. Describe what lies beyond my sight. Bran considered. He looked past Tyrion toward the King's Road, where fresh tracks scored the mud. Southward the road bends like a river of stone. He began, voice soft but clear. Horses leave black prints that steam in the frost. A party rides at dawn, huntsmen, I think, with spears and hounds. They carry no banners. Tyrion closed his eyes to picture it. Hounds bayed, hoofs churned, breath plumed. He saw nothing but darkness behind his lids. There is a wolf on the rise beyond, Bran continued. Gray, big as a pony. She watches the hunters go. Summer's dam, Tyrion murmured, recalling the dire wolf pups. The image pleased him. Hunters pursued by hunters of another kind. And farther, white peaks like broken teeth, clouds spilling blood red in the sunrise, and Bran's voice cut off. Tyrion opened his eyes. The boy no longer looked south. His gaze fixed now on a window half hidden beneath a stone arch in the tower opposite. The window's shutters stood ajar. Inside, lamplight flickered. Nothing seemed amiss, yet Bran's posture tensed, shoulders rounding, like a cat scenting danger. Curiosity pricked Tyrion anew. Something of interest? Bran shook his head too quickly. He shifted his weight as though preparing to climb again, but not upward. Toward that window, Tyrion's pulse quickened. Best choose another path, he advised lightly. Some windows are opened only to be slammed shut. Bran ignored him. He sprang to a drain pipe, gripped, and began to ascend. The pipe shuddered. Rust flakes drifted down. Tyrion cursed under his breath and stepped back, craning for a better view. Up Bran went, small hands steady on corroded iron, boots balancing on chipped stone moldings. 1 yard, 2, 3, until he reached the sill of the lit window. He paused there, toes on a ledge scarcely 2 fingers wide, and leaned forward, peering into the room. Tyrion's stomach sank. He recognized that window now, Lady Cersei's guest chamber. She had chosen it for its privacy, for the thick curtains that muffled sound. Even Robert would not dare burst in unannounced. A flicker at the window. Bran's head pivoted abruptly, eyes wide. He had been seen. Tyrion's mind raced. If Cersei found the boy spying, if Jaime was inside with her, it would be scandal enough to tear skin from reputations. Yet worse was the risk that Jaime, in a panic, might do something reckless. Something. Tyrion moved. He turned and found the stairs shadowed maw again, hands fumbling for cracks in the stone. His gait was awkward, legs too short, knees protesting, but adrenaline lent wings. He climbed 2 steps, 3, ignoring the scrape of broken stone against his shins. Above, Bran leapt. He caught the sill of the adjoining tower and swung, feet dangling over nothing. For an instant he hung suspended between sky and earth, then hauled himself onto the sill. Tyrion lost sight of him. Nightmare visions unspooled. Bran crashing through glass, Cersei's scream, Jaime's sword flash. He tried to climb faster. The stair crumbled underfoot. Stone shifted with a dull crack. Tyrion pitched forward, catching himself on an elbow against rough granite. Pain flared. He bit it down and pushed on. Voices above, muffled but sharp. He recognized Jaime's baritone, tight as a bowstring. Then Cersei, icy with command. A child's gasp. Tyrion reached the broken landing, now little more than a jagged half-circle, and pressed his back to the wall. The window lay around the curve, unseen but close. He could intervene, he told himself. Step between. Talk Jaime down. Yet he hesitated. What if the boy already knew too much? What if Jaime lost control? Silence. Then a scuffle, rapid footfalls, a yelp. Tyrion lurched forward. He came upon them at the worst moment. Bran perched on the sill, half inside, half out, small hands gripping stone. Jaime looming, one golden hand clenched tight around the boy's wrist. Cersei behind, eyes wide with fury and fear. The air crackled with danger. Bran's gaze flicked to Tyrion. Recognition dawned, and then confusion as the boy realized this was not the Kingslayer before him, but the imp, the laughing Lannister. Tyrion, Jaime barked, shock splintering his composure. What are you? Cersei hissed his name, warning. Tyrion's mind calculated the distance to Bran, the strength ratio, the political fallout, the boy's knowledge, the kingdom's balance. In that breath, history pivoted. He stepped closer, reached out, and pressed 2 fingers against Bran's chest. Time slowed. The boy's eyes widened, mouth forming a silent question. Tyrion saw, reflected in those eyes, the wall he could never climb, the world he could never see. He saw pity there, or worse, condescension. He pushed. It was not a mighty shove, perhaps only a nudge born of impulse, of resentment, of desperate logic. Break the witness, spare the realm. But Bran teetered, arms pinwheeling. The golden hand released him. The room tilted. Then Bran was gone, tumbling backward into air that swallowed screams whole. Tyrion staggered to the sill and looked down. Far below, a figure in gray plummeted past stone and timber, limbs splayed like a broken marionette. The courtyard rushed up to meet him. Tyrion's stomach lurched. The deed was done. The world irrevocably altered. He heard Cersei's breath hitch, felt Jaime's hand clamp his shoulder. For an instant, the 3 of them stood united in horror. Then Jaime's grip tightened, spinning Tyrion to face him. Fire blazed in the Kingslayer's green eyes. Fury, disbelief, a protective instinct as primal as hunger. Yet beneath it all, Tyrion glimpsed something colder. Calculation. Cersei found her voice first, low and knife-sharp. We are lost. No, Tyrion replied, surprised at the steadiness of his tone. We are in this together. We make the tale fit the players. Jaime's fingers dug deeper. You killed a child. A witness, Tyrion corrected, though the word tasted of ash. A tragedy no one could foresee. Outside, alarms began to ring. Shouts echoed through stone corridors. The wolves of Winterfell howled as one. Cersei crossed to the window, peered down, and made the sign of the 7-pointed star upon her breast. Bran Stark fell. His climbing got the best of him. Your Grace. She turned to Jaime, voice suddenly precise, rehearsed. You were hunting with the king. Tyrion and I were together, in the tower library, debating dragons and dwarfs. We heard the commotion. We rushed to help, too late. Jaime's jaw clenched. His golden hand flexed once, twice, as though testing the weight of invisible chains. Then he released Tyrion. Very well, he said, voice hollow. Let us pray the boy dies quickly. Tyrion wiped sweat from his brow, though the chamber was freezing. Below, chaos erupted. Men racing, horses whinnying, the clatter of armor. Somewhere in that din, a mother's scream cut through, raw and unending. He imagined Bran's last sight. The blue winter sky spinning, stones rushing up, distant faces turning toward him too late. He wondered if the boy had understood, in that final heartbeat, the reason someone who yearned for height might resent him his wings. Tyrion Lannister had always been quick of wit and sharp of tongue. He had not known, until that moment, that he could be quick of hands as well. The knowledge galled him. It empowered him. It damned him. He stepped back from the window, straightened doublet and cloak, and forced a breath into cold lungs. "Come," he said softly. "The game's first piece has fallen. We must set the board before the next move is forced upon us." Cersei nodded, eyes glinting like amber tears. Jaime lingered one heartbeat longer at the sill, then drew the shutters closed, plunging the room into shadow. Only the crackle of a lone hearth remained, and the faint echo of a boy's fall fading into history. Outside, Winterfell wailed. Inside, the Lannisters moved as one, weaving their alibis, stitching a story whose threads were red and gold and slick with the blood of innocence. In the Godswood, the heart tree watched, and the face carved in its trunk seemed to weep scarlet for what was lost. The Game of Thrones had always been cruel. Now it had a new player, a dwarf with blood on his hands and a secret in his heart, and the board itself shuddered beneath the weight of that first, terrible push. Wind howled between the towers like a wounded thing, carrying with it the thick, metallic tang of blood and the thinner, fainter scent of fear. In the courtyard beneath the broken tower, lanterns bobbed and guttered. Men shouted for stretchers, for the maester, for gods that had never watched Winterfell so closely as they did in that hour. Bran Stark lay crumpled upon the hard-packed snow, limbs bent at angles that mocked the grace with which he had climbed not moments before. One leg twitched, whether living spasm or simple settling of broken bones none could say. Silent as the grave, Winterfell's direwolves circled the chaos, their hackles high, yellow eyes flaring at every torch that dared blaze too near. Catelyn Stark arrived first, racing down the covered bridge as though death itself snapped at her heels. Her slippers, soft leather meant for hushing footfalls in corridors, slid on the frost. She barely felt the jolt when Ser Roderick caught her arm to slow her descent of the stairs. She tore free with a strength she had never known she possessed. The sight below struck her harder than any fall. Her youngest trueborn son, that bright hummingbird of a boy, lying silent beneath a swirl of falling snow. She heard nothing beyond the waterfall roar of her own blood. Someone tried to bar her path. She shouldered past with all the fury of motherhood and dropped to her knees beside Bran. "Maester Luwin," she cried, though Luwin already knelt opposite her, half-moon spectacles askew. His hands worked frantically, checking pulse, peeling back eyelid, smoothing hair away from a gash above Bran's brow that leaked crimson into the snow. He said something, pressure, fracture, bleeding, but the words struck her like stones skipping on deep water. They broke the surface yet failed to sink in. Robb crashed through the cordon next, gray eyes wild. "Mother, hold his head," she commanded. Robb did so, choking on a sob that shattered against the stonework around them. Bran's breath came in rattling bursts. Catelyn pressed icy fingers to her son's cheek and begged any god that would listen. "Let him live. Let him live." At the periphery, servants whispered theories at dagger point hush. "He slipped. He always climbs. Fool boy." Some looked upward, tracing imaginary paths along the stone where small handprints might still smear the frost. Others looked to the Lannister guards near the stables, their lions emblazoned in gold thread that glimmered darkly in torchlight. It was Ser Roderick who rose above the rumors with a bellow that sent ravens scattering from rooftops. "Make room. Stretchers. Find Lord Stark this instant." Ned arrived seconds later, wet-headed from the baths, shirt half-laced. The moment his gaze touched Bran, grief carved new lines on his face. He knelt opposite Catelyn, reached across the stretcher poles to clasp her wrist. In that wordless grip, they shared everything. The terror of looming loss, the stubborn hope that still beat within their joined veins, the unspoken pledge to avenge their son should he fall. Gray winds howl shivered through the yard like breaking glass. Others answered. Lady's softer cry, Nymeria's high keen, Shaggy Dog's murderous snarl. Summer alone padded forward and lay beside Bran, muzzle nudging an unresponsive hand. No man dared drag him away. Dire wolves understood grief. Their growls dared any to interfere. At last, Bran was borne toward the keep, Summer pacing beside with tail low. Catelyn and Ned followed, and Robb, though taller than most men already, seemed suddenly small. A boy adrift behind the broken body of his brother. In the emptying courtyard, Tyrion watched from shadow, half concealed by a buttress. His heart hammered so loudly he feared the direwolves would hear. Snow settled on his shoulders and melted down the curve of his spine, each drop colder than the last. Around him, the stark menials whispered guesses, trading them like market gossip. None spoke the truth. Jaime's voice stirred at his back. You never could hold your wine. His tone was flat, not a jest but a judgment. Tyrion forced his eyes from the smear Bran's blood had left on white ground. And you never could hold your temper, he murmured, voice thick. An inconvenient trait in moments such as these. Jaime stepped into the torch glow. Every line of him proclaimed casual ease, but the set of his jaw was brittle glass. Remember the tale, imp library, dragons, dwarfs. Not one word more. A story writ in golden ink, Tyrion agreed, and easily smudged by guilt. Jaime's hand closed around Tyrion's forearm. Smudge it, and I snapped the quill. Tyrion studied the fingers digging into his sleeve. 5 of flesh, 5 of metal. Kingslayer and kinsman both. He nodded once. Jaime released, but the mark remained long after he'd stalked away through drifting snow. Cersei awaited her brothers in the Queen's solar, the hearth blazing hot enough to birth sweat on bare skin. She paced before the fire, gown rustling like an adder through dry grass. Behind her, 2 Lannister guards stood sentinel. Gold-red cloaks hid their faces in a shifting tide of linen, eyes forward, mouths stitched shut by oath. When Jaime entered, she snapped, Is he dead? Not yet, Jaime answered, yanking off his riding gloves though he had not ridden. The maester works. Tyrion slipped inside and closed the door behind him with a click that felt too loud. Alive, yes. Comatose, perhaps. Broken near beyond mending. Cersei rounded on him. Perhaps does not suit us, little brother. Tyrion's laugh sounded like glass shards in a leather purse. Forgive me, sweet sister. I misplaced my physician's chain. I only push boys from towers. I do not pronounce their prognosis. Cersei's slap came faster than thought. An open palm that cracked against his cheekbone and left ringing in his ears. The Lannister guards flinched but did not move. They were statues, golden lions carved to watch sin. Tyrion tasted copper. Ah, there's the affection I so adore. Speak lightly now, Jaime warned, settling between them. We must craft consolation for the Starks, not insult them. Tyrion pressed a handkerchief to his lip. Consolation? The boy's spine is shattered. No song will mend it. We will mend our position, Cersei corrected. She smoothed her gown, forcing calm into every gesture.
Bran muss die.
Soon, if he wakes. Tyrion felt again the push, the moment of weightless shock on the child's small face. His stomach lurched. If he wakes, he croaked. I will finish what I began. Jaime's eyes widened, but Cersei smiled, sharp as a sigil stamp on hot wax. Then we have an understanding. Maester Luwin's chambers became a shrine of hushed desperation. The air smelled of crushed willow bark, boiled wine, and clovery thistle used to dull pain. Bran lay in a nest of pelts. Wolf fur, bear, sheep, anything warm. Eyes shut beneath lids so pale the veins traced blue maps upon them. His breathing rasped like wind through dead leaves, each rise of his chest a battle won, each fall a retreat. Catelyn sat vigil, refusing food or rest. Ned came and went like a ghost, duty dragging him to councils with King Robert and back again. Robb, Arya, and Sansa hovered in the corridor, unable to bear the sight yet unable to flee it. Jon Snow stood apart, half hidden near the door. Ghost lounged at his boots, red eyes fixed on Bran's still form. The direwolf pup, once playful as any hound, had grown silent. Jon reached down, fingers burying themselves in white fur. He caught his father's eye. Ned crossed to him, and for a moment the Lord of Winterfell was only a weary man confronting grief. "Your brothers need you," Ned said, voice raw. "Especially Robb." Jon nodded, though he felt useless as a spear of ice in summer. "I'll sit with him tonight, if you wish." "You are kind." Ned's hand settled on Jon's shoulder. No more words passed. Ned's eyes spoke enough, heavy with love and sorrow. He returned to Catelyn, who did not look up. Jon lingered until Maester Luwin shooed him off to fetch more clean cloth. He obeyed, leaving Ghost to guard Bran. In the corridor, the keep's stones muffled sound. Jon nearly collided with Tyrion Lannister. The dwarf carried a stack of books tall as his head. Scrolls poked from beneath his arm. Startled, Jon offered a bow neither servant nor equal might give, an awkward half-nod. Tyrion grunted, steadied his burden, and peered past Jon toward Bran's room. "How fares the young eagle?" he asked, voice pitched low. "Maester says, it is a steep wall to climb," Jon answered, repeating Luwin's gentle metaphor for death. He swallowed. "But Bran has climbed steeper." Tyrion's eyes flickered, gold-green under torchlight. "Hope is a feeble crutch, yet sometimes it bears surprising weight." He turned as if to go, then paused. "If you would honor your brother, keep that wolf near. I have found beasts worth a dozen maesters." Jon stared after him, troubled by something unspoken in the dwarf's uneven stride. 3 days passed. Snow thickened, blanketing Winterfell in relentless white. Bran lived, wavering at the border where souls choose roads unseen. Catelyn never left his bedside. Ned's duties frayed. Robb assumed command of the household guard, his boy's face hardening into grim adulthood with each hour of uncertainty. Sansa wept in corners. Arya vanished into stables and practice yards, her grief forging rebellion in a heart already sharp with longing for swords. King Robert drank and hunted and complained of northern chill. His court swarmed the great hall in idle speculation, picking over Winterfell's wounds like crows over a corpse. Some whispered accident, others sabotage, a few, quietest of all, murmured of politics, for accidents near royalty often serve someone's cause. Lord Tywin's children moved through these whispers as dancers through smoke, leaving no trace. Cersei offered soft condolences to Catelyn that tasted of honeyed nightshade. Jaime rode with Lord Stark's rangers, lending sword and smile. Tyrion kept to the library, or so anyone seeking him was told. Yet at night, when halls slumbered and guards grew lax, Tyrion walked a narrower path, from his chambers to Bran's door. He never entered. The direwolves would not permit it. But he listened, leaning against stone cooled by winter's breath, and measured each of Bran's rattling sighs. He timed the maester's visits, counted how many vials of milk of the poppy remained, noted which herbs soothed swelling and which thinned blood. On the 4th midnight, wolf howls shattered silence. Tyrion startled from uneasy dreams, visions of tiny hands slipping from his grasp, and rose, heart hammering. He lit a taper and padded toward Bran's chamber. Midway down the corridor, he froze. Catelyn Stark stood in the doorway, her night robe a pale flag of mourning. One hand gripped a dagger, the dragonbone-hilted blade Lord Stark had gifted her on their wedding morn. Its edge glimmered. She stared not at Tyrion but down the hall behind him, where shadows pooled thickest. "Who goes there?" she whispered, voice hoarse from days without sleep. Tyrion raised empty hands. "Merely a restless soul, my lady. Forgive the intrusion." Catelyn's gaze shifted to him, narrowed. "Why do you skulk at night?" "I study," he answered plainly. Words come easier when fools are abed. Something in his tone, or perhaps the memory of her son's fall, tightened Catelyn's fist on the dagger. "Your studies draw you near my child often, Lannister." Tyrion inclined his head. Curiosity alone. I have an interest in the human body, its frailty, its resilience. Your son exemplifies both." Before she could reply, a gust of wind slammed open a shutter down the hall. The candle in Tyrion's hand guttered. Shadows leapt. Catelyn's head snapped toward the noise. Ghostly moonlight spilled across flagstones, revealing nothing but swirling snow. "I swear I heard," she muttered. "Grief crafts phantoms," Tyrion suggested gently. "Best return to the boy." Catelyn hesitated, then withdrew. As she disappeared, Tyrion exhaled a breath he hadn't known he held. He followed, stopping short of the doorway. Within, Summer growled, eyes like molten coin. Tyrion backed away, heart beating at his ribs like a hammer on anvil. Morning crest painted Winterfell gold. Ned Stark summoned all visiting lords to the Great Hall. Word had come. King Robert intended to ride on the morrow, Bran's accident be damned. Robert was impatient with grief that was not his own. Ned sought to placate him to barter time. Dozens gathered. Stark banners, Karstark, Umber, Manderley, and the Lion of Lannister shining brightest among them. Tyrion sat low on a carved bench, mind far from speeches. He turned a silver coin between thumb and forefinger, studying the stamp of Aerys Targaryen upon it. A mad king's face, mirrored by a mad deed. Conversation swelled, echoed, collapsed. Tyrion caught fragments. Maester says swelling abates. If the boy wakes, he may never walk. Dreadful tragedy, but accidents happen, especially here in these northern ruins. He poured wine into his cup, watched crimson eddies swirl. A hush fell when Catelyn entered. She moved as though built of glass, fragile yet cutting. Her eyes raked the hall, pausing upon each Lannister. Tyrion felt her gaze like a knife tip behind his ear. Lord Stark addressed the crowd. Words of patience, of prayer, of gratitude to visiting healers. Robert interrupted, booming about boars and cellars of Wintertown ale. The hall's rafters rang with forced laughter. Yet Catelyn's stare never strayed from the three lions. After adjournment, she cornered Tyrion beside a tapestry depicting Nymeria's voyage. "I would speak," she said. "Not request, command." Tyrion bowed. "As my lady wishes." They retired to a window nook. Snow drifted outside, soft against stained glass. "My son's fall," Catelyn began, voice low, "was no accident." Tyrion's fingers twitched around his goblet. "A grave suspicion. If true, the culprit must be found." "I found proof," she continued. From her sleeve she produced a length of blonde hair, finer than spider silk, entwined in the stones of the broken tower. "Not Bran's, not mine. Lannister gold." Tyrion's mouth went dry. He forced a puzzled frown. "Blonde hair is hardly unique. Half the South is fair." "Perhaps." Her eyes hardened. "Yet I heard voices in that tower before my boy fell. A woman's, a man's, arguing." Tyrion swallowed. He pictured the scene. Bran clinging to a sill, Cersei's panicked hiss, Jaime's oath. "You believe one of my kin pushed him. I believe you know more than you say." Her grip on the hair tightened. "Tell me now, and I may spare those not involved." Tyrion sipped wine to wet his tongue. "I wish I could ease your burden, Lady Stark, truly, but I arrived at Winterfell a stranger to its heights. I could no more scale that tower than fly." She leaned closer. "Strangers observe what family hides." A storm brewed in her eyes, equal parts grief, rage, and something else. A plea for truth. Tyrion almost confessed, almost laid bare the impulse, the push, the heartbeat of envy and panic that had shattered Bran's world. But shame clamped iron bands around his chest. Confession would damn not only him but Cersei, Jaime, House Lannister entire. His father would flay the seven themselves before permitting that. He bowed his head. "I am sorry." Catelyn's shoulders sagged. "So am I, my lord." She tucked the golden hair away. "Pray that my son lives. If he wakes, he will speak the truth." Tyrion watched her depart and felt the axe above his head lower by invisible inches. If Bran awoke, truth would indeed march. And Tyrion would march behind it, bound in chains of his own making. That night brought dreams. Bran hovered in twilight forest. Wolf's eyes watched through his own, smelling sap and rot and distant snow. Branches formed arches. Beyond them lay a cavern of black roots. In its depths flickered 3 red lights, eyes within a face of bone-white wood. "Fly, little bird," a voice whispered. "Fly or fall again." He tried to answer, but no sound emerged. The world spun, changing. Trees became towers, leaves stone. The owls hooted a woman's scream. He fell, again and again, endless sky above, stone below, until another voice cut through the wind. "Wake." He jolted. Pain lanced through his spine like wildfire through dry straw. He would have screamed had breath obeyed. Somewhere close, Maester Luwin cried out, dropping a pitcher. Footsteps thundered. Warm hands lifted Bran's head, probed pulse. Distantly he heard his name repeated. Mother, father, Robb. A direwolf's howl rose so loud it split the candle flames. Bran's eyes fluttered. Veiled shapes sharpened. Timber beams, flickering lamps, the curve of his mother's cheek wet with tears. He tasted iron in his mouth, smelled nightshade and boiled leather. "Sweetling," Catelyn whispered, voice breaking. He tried to speak. Tongue sandpaper, throat raw. She wept harder. Maester Luwin pushed a cup to his lips. Warm milk laced with something bitter. He swallowed. Outside the chamber, a servant bolted down corridors shouting, "He's awake! The young lord is awake!" The cry traveled faster than raven, reaching king, knights, small folk. In a Lannister tower, Cersei's hand trembled so that wine sloshed over her wrist. Jaime closed his eyes. Tyrion, bent over a ledger, froze. Ink pooled, spreading like night across parchment. He rose too quickly, dizziness splintering vision. The time had come sooner than he'd prayed. He must act or be undone. At dawn's first gray blush, Tyrion sought Queen Cersei. He found her pacing, hair unbound, lips bloodless. "He lives," she said, "and will speak." Tyrion nodded. "Unless we ensure his silence." Jaime, leaning on a windowsill, turned. "I will not sink another blade into child flesh." "No blade," Tyrion said. "There are subtler weapons. Fear, doubt, shadow." Cersei's brow furrowed. "Speak plainly." Tyrion gestured for wine. A servant poured with shaking hands. Bran fell from a tower. His mind may be clouded. Memories fracture. If we weave a tale before he wakes fully, he may grasp it as his own. Jaime scoffed. "You would fill his head with lies? I would survive," Tyrion snapped, then gentled his tone. "And keep you alive as well. Listen, Bran beloved his climbing. Tell him he lost his grip. A tragic accident, nothing more. If he doubts, offer kindness. Guilt will seem his own." Cersei paced. "Can that work?" "It must," Tyrion said. "Or we must revert to sharper remedies." Silence stretched. Jaime's jaw flexed with unspoken protest, but he looked away and said nothing. Cersei exhaled. "Very well. We plant the seed." Bran drifted through waking like a leaf on eddying water. One moment he saw Maester Luwin's spectacles glint. Next, Arya's tear-streaked cheeks. Then dark again. Voices overlapped. Memory snared him. Towers, wind, a woman's cry, a golden man pulling, a dwarf's small hand shoving, the rush of empty space. He tried to piece it together. Pain scattered thought. On the second day of waking, Tyrion visited. Robb allowed it barely, standing sentry by the door with hand on sword. Tyrion approached Bran's bedside slowly, as though crossing thin ice. "Little lord," he greeted softly, "the realm rejoices at your return." Bran's eyes fixed upon him. Still, Tyrion felt pinned like a moth on cork. "I envied you once," Tyrion confessed. "Your gift of towers, of heights beyond me. Now you have conquered a greater climb, the one back to us." His words tasted false, yet Bran blinked, slow, uncertain. Tyrion took a breath. My own feet fail me, he continued. Yet I have learned this, when we fall we rise. Perhaps you slipped. Perhaps the stones betrayed you. It matters not. Only that you heal. Bran's brows knit. His mouth moved. I did not slip. But sound failed him, cast adrift on the sea of his broken body. Tyrion laid a hand upon the boy's arm, light, careful. Rest, he urged. Dream sweet, and climb again someday, in story if not stone. Rob Bristle. Addition enough. Tyrion retreated under the weight of the elder Stark's glare. He bowed, withdrew. Outside he exhaled, knees weak. In the corridor he crossed paths with Catelyn. She regarded him with a chill that could freeze wildfire. He remembers, she whispered, voice brittle. I see it in his eyes. Tyrion forced calm. Memories warp around pain. Not all. Her chin lifted. I will learn what happened. The North remembers, my lord. He inclined his head, fought the tremor in his hands, and moved on. Her promise echoed within him, heavier than the gold of Casterly Rock. Night fell hard. In Catelyn's vigil dreams, a raven perched on Bran's windowsill, eyes red as coals. It spoke a single syllable, north. She woke choking on cold air. Bran slept fitful, eyelids twitching. Summer pressed close, fur bristling though the chamber was warm. Candle flames leaned toward the door, as if pulled by a breath from the corridor beyond. Catelyn rose, dagger in hand. She eased open the door. Hallway empty, save a shadow flitting around the corner. She followed, down narrow stairs, past silent suits of rusted armor, through a servant's passage seldom trod. The shadow moved ahead, always one turn beyond her torchlight. She quickened pace, bare feet numbed by stone. In a forgotten washroom, the shadow halted. Catelyn stepped inside. Moonlight spilled through lattice vents, striping floor and wall. No one within, but there, a bundle on the flagstones. Thick cloth. She knelt, unwrapped it. A dagger, not the dragonbone hilt she knew, but a curved blade of Valyrian steel in a dragonbone grip. An assassin's knife. Beside it, a scrap of parchment. He must die. Signed with a lion rampant. Catelyn's pulse roared. She spun, half expecting the murderer to strike. Empty air. She gathered blade and note, fled back the way she'd come. At Bran's door she collided with Maester Luwin. My lady? He asked, startled. Fetch Lord Stark, she gasped, and bring that dagger to light. We have proof. Luwin paled at the sight. Where? No time. Hurry. As he hurried off, Catelyn breathed deep. The dagger's weight felt like judgment. Yet as she turned the bone-white hilt, she saw something odd. In the grip's grooves, pale hairs, blonde, clung like spider silk. Her fingers trembled. The puzzle pieces shifted. Golden hair, lion seal, a blade hidden in darkness. In Bran's chamber, the boy moaned. Summer's ears flattened. Catelyn crossed to her son's side, heart pounding. Mother, Bran rasped, startling her. First word since waking. She knelt. I'm here, sweetling. Pushed, he whispered. The imp pushed. Her blood froze. Tyrion. Bran's lids fluttered. Small hand, shove me. Fall. The world narrowed to a pinpoint. Across it flashed images. Tyrion's night visits, his sly words, the gold hair in the tower. Rage burned away sorrow, forging decision in iron. She smoothed Bran's hair. Rest now. I will make this right. Before dawn, Catelyn Stark rode from Winterfell with Ser Roderick and a handful of loyal men. In her saddlebag lay the Valyrian steel dagger and the scrap of parchment. Evidence enough, she vowed, to bring the imp to justice. She turned south along the King's Road, intent upon intercepting Lord Tywin's son before he reached the Vale or the Trident. Vengeance traveled swift on the wings of northern winter. Behind her, Ned Stark watched from parapet, torn between King's command and wife's departure. In the courtyard, Tyrion prepared to ride east toward the Wall. Curiosity, he claimed, to view the edge of the realm. He knew nothing of Catelyn's flight, yet unease twisted his gut. Bran slept again, dream drifting in shadow forests. The three-eyed raven called to him, "Fly, little lord. Truth has talents." Summer lay beneath the bed, amber eyes fixed upon the doorway, awaiting the next foul wind. And so the game's second piece moved, guided by the unseen hands of guilt, grief, and fate. The push that toppled a boy now toppled fates. A mother into righteous fury, a father into impossible choices, a kingdom toward sharper war. Snow kept falling, quiet as secrets, deep as lies, burying the footfalls of those who ran down paths set in motion by one small, desperate shove. The dawn after Catelyn's flight broke red as a wound, the sun a thin blade sawing through low clouds that bled over the jagged treeline. Ned Stark stood on the battlements above the inner ward, cloak snapping like a banner in the wind, and watched the pale ribbon of the King's Road fade into the southern mists. Somewhere beyond those mists rode his wife, a dragon-bone dagger at her hip, hunting answers too dangerous to leave in shadow. He should have gone with her. Every vow he cherished screamed it, but duty shackled him here. Robert's summons to King's Landing, the handship thrust upon him like a poisoned crown, and now the king's irritable preparations for departure that could not be delayed. Below, the courtyard churned with leave-taking. Squires ferried chests. Grooms soothed restive horses. The clang of harness buckles rang out beneath the croak of ravens gorging on the refuse of last night's feast. Winterfell, though swaddled in snow, felt flayed open, its secret heart exposed. Bran's accident had done that. No, not accident, Ned corrected. Bran's fall. The words tasted of smoke and broken promises. Robb emerged from the armory, mail shirt half-buckled, hair damp from sweat despite the chill. 9 and 10, and already the weight of a lord pressed his shoulders. He caught his father's eye, offered a curt nod, and moved on to oversee the loading of provisions. Behind him trotted Grey Wind, muzzle flecked with frost, yellow eyes scanning every stranger in Lannister red. Across the yard Tyrion inspected his pony, patting the shaggy creature's neck with absent affection. A black cloak trimmed in sable draped his shoulders, but pushed back to expose the pale mound of his brow. He spoke with Maester Luwin, polite, distant questions about Bran's health, then laughed at some quiet reply, the sound brittle as frost under boot. In the flash of that laughter Ned glimpsed something raw, but it slipped away before he could name it. Brooding never changed a man's fate, came a voice behind him. Ned turned. Maester Luwin had climbed the stair in silence. He pressed a steaming mug into Ned's hands. The scent of mulled cider rose, sharp with clove. "Your strength wanes," Luwin said. "Drink." Ned sipped. "How fares my son?" "No worse, my lord." His pulse steadies, fever recedes. He drifts between sleep and shallow waking. In time we may know the breadth of his hurts. The maester's breath clouded the air. "Time is a scarce commodity, I fear. The king presses to leave, and Winterfell loses its lady." "She rides for justice," Ned murmured. "Justice or vengeance?" Ned could not answer. Far below, Tyrion swung into his saddle with the practiced awkwardness of a man long resigned to ill-matched limbs. Jon Snow appeared then, leading a tall gelding. Ghost loped behind, white against white. Ned's throat tightened. He had promised Jon the Wall. He had promised Benjen his nephew. Promises lay stacked like kindling, ready for flame. "Tell me," Luwin said softly, "what happens when oaths collide?" "They splinter," Ned replied, "and the shards cut deepest." He drained the cider, handed the cup back, and strode for the stair. Below, Robert's horn rang out, the boisterous summons of a man eager to be away from consequence. The king's laughter followed, booming as storm sea surf, but to Ned it sounded hollow. The party filed through Winterfell's gatehouse beneath banners stiff with rime. Robert rode at the head, cloak of cloth of gold furred with black bear, warhammer slung across his saddle as if a hunt might spring from the snowbanks. Beside him Jaime Lannister sat tall, armor gleaming despite the clouded sun, the lion helm at his hip. Cersei followed in a litter borne by 6 guards. No glimpse of her face escaped the gilt curtains. Tyrion took his place near the rear, among the king's huntsmen and a gaggle of squires. Jon rode just ahead with Benjen Stark, who had never left the group's flanks since arriving from the wall. The dire wolves padded in uneasy silence, as though sensing that this exodus carried rot in its heart. Ned mounted, Robb at his side. As the column stirred, a cry rose from the crowd. Young Rickon, cheeks chapped, waving a carving of a knight he had whittled for Bran. Ned's chest ached. He raised a hand in farewell. The gates yawned and swallowed them. Snow fell thicker south of Winterfell, coating branches in downy hush. The king's retinue stretched in a bright, serpentine line along the white-blanketed road. Robert's voice carried on the wind, body jokes punctuated by hacking coughs. Jaime laughed. Jory Castle marked every sudden bend with wary eyes. Knights' pennants flapped like wounded birds. Tyrion kept to himself. The sway of the pony jarred his bruised ribs, courtesy of Jaime's parting grip. Worse was the awareness of every Stark gaze burning his back. He felt Bran's memory alive behind him, breathing frost on his nape. At midday they paused to water horses by a half-frozen stream. Ned dismounted to walk among the animals, hand on hilts, thinking. He found Tyrion alone at the water's edge, skipping stones across a patch of ice-rimmed shallows. "You ride for the wall, my lord?" Ned asked. Tyrion did not startle. "Curiosity is a heavier spur than comfort. I wish to see the end of the world before I return to its middle." "The wall is no jest," Ned said, "nor its people. I assure you, Lord Stark, I possess no jests this morn." Tyrion flicked a final stone. It clacked, spun, fell. "Your son, does he speak yet?" No. Ned studied the dwarf's profile. The scarred brow, the wary mouth. "What interest have you?" "Only that a cripple is a rarity. One notices kin." Tyrion brushed snow from his glove. "I envy his survival." Ned's jaw hardened. "Envy. It is my nature. Men of stature envy kings. I envy climbers." A sigh misted the air. "May we both see him stand again."
Ned hesitated.
Something in the dwarf's tone, half plea, half confession, unsettled him. But Robert called for his hand, and duty pulled. Ned left Tyrion to shadows. South they rode. Pines ceded to oaks, snow thinned to crusted patches of brown grass. Ravens became crows. 2 days beyond Winterfell, Ned turned east with the royal party toward Moat Cailin, while Tyrion and Benjen angled west across the neck toward the ancient causeway road that led to the wall. Jon spurred after them, heart hammering with longing and fear. The morning they parted, Ned clasped Jon's shoulder. "The wall will test you," he said. "Remember, any man's worth lies in the choices he makes." Jon nodded, words knotted behind his teeth. He looked once more toward the southbound banners, Stark direwolf beside Baratheon stag, and felt a tug, as though half his spirit went one way, the rest another. Tyrion watched the farewell with eyes gone distant, as though measuring the cost of every parting. When Jon turned to him, the dwarf managed a crooked smile. "Shall we, bastard?" They rode into a marshy wind that reeked of peat fires and rotting sedge. The causeway stones jutted like dragon teeth. Horses slipped, curses flew. Benjen led, restless, as though ravens whispered ill news from the north. Night settled damp and heavy. They made camp on a rare dry hummock where twisted pine roots coiled above the muck like sleeping serpents. Jon tended cook fire, feeding it chunks of scrub pine that hissed sap. Tyrion sat close, warmth touching cheeks still sore from cold. Benjen walked perimeter, ghost padding beside him, red eyes reflecting flame. "Tell me something," Jon said, voice hushed so as not to wake the snoring rangers beyond. "Why see the wall at all? A lord's son could find warmer beds south." "A lord's son," Tyrion echoed. "A curious distinction." He poked the fire with a stick. "I am my father's shame, and he my burden. The wall reminds men there are worse fates than to be born the size of a child." Jon frowned. "You think yourself cursed?" "I know it." A faint tremor touched Tyrion's hands. "But curses are fickle. They bite the hand that flaunts them. At the edge of the world, curses and crowns mean less." Jon fed a branch to the flames. Sparks spiraled into black vault above. Bran wanted to see beyond the wall. His voice broke. He dreamed of giants. Some dreams break, Tyrion murmured, turning the stick to ash in his palm. Others break us. He rose abruptly. Rest, Jon Snow. The morrow drips ice. As the dwarf limped toward his tent, Jon watched, questions roiling like storm clouds backed by moon. Ghost lay head upon paws, ears twitching. 200 leagues south, Catelyn Stark reined her horse at the inn at the crossroads, where the King's Road and the high road of the Vale entwined like lovers parting. Snow here melted to sleet against thatched roofs. Stinking mud swallowed hoofprints. Inside, the common room burned with firelight and rumor. Merchants from Gulltown bickered with men-at-arms sworn to house fry. 2 sells words through dice. A singer tuned harp strings sour with damp. Catelyn chose a corner table, Ser Roderick at her flank masking identity beneath hood and thick gray whiskers. She drank pear cider, eyes scanning each newcomer. For 2 days they had ridden a jagged path, doubling back, hiding tracks, chasing whispers that Tyrion Lannister journeyed to the Eyrie by way of this very inn. If the gods favored justice, she would find him here. A roar erupted near the hearth. The cell's words cursed, dice scattered. A purse changed hands. Amid the commotion, the door banged wide, wind screeching. In walked a dwarf in sable cloak, cheeks ruddy from road and drink. Behind him, a tall boy in black and Benjen Stark of the Night's Watch shook rein from shoulders. The dwarf laughed, asked for roast boar and the darkest ale south of Molestown. He never saw Catelyn. Her breath froze. Fingers closed around the bone-white hilt inside her cloak.
Ser Roderick tensed.
What proof we carry, he whispered, will not sway this crowd. And yet we must act, she hissed. Roderick's eyes swept the room. 6 armed men, most strangers. The singer by the door, he wears Lord Walder's colors. Fry men will answer my call. Catelyn nodded. She rose, stepping into lamplight. Rain-damp hair clung to her cheeks. Travel grime streaked her gown, yet her bearing cut through noise like a blade. Good folk, she called, voice clear. Dice fell silent, harp strings stilled. All eyes turned. I am Catelyn Stark of Winterfell, she declared, daughter of House Tully of Riverrun. A stir ran through the throng. She pointed to Tyrion. And in my company I find the imp of House Lannister, brother to the Queen. By my leave he is charged with the grievous assault upon my son. Tyrion's flagon halted halfway to lips.
Pardon.
Seize him, Catelyn ordered. In the king's name, lord's name, mother's name, take the dwarf. Fry men hesitated, but Ser Roderick's sword sang from scabbard, and they flowed forward. Benjen Stark barked protest. Jon Snow leapt to his feet. The cell's words drew blades for coin offered. Steel met steel. In the scuffle, a bench overturned. Sparks flew from hearth. Tyrion backpedaled, righteous fury shading to fear. He reached for a dagger, found none. Fry hands closed on his arms. Lady Stark, he sputtered. This is madness, and justice both, she replied, voice trembling. You will answer in the Eyrie before my sister, before the gods. Your sister is half mad herself. Release me. Catelyn ignored him. Jon stood, torn, eyes pleading. She softened. He harmed Bran, she said. I must carry him to judgment. Jon's jaw clenched. He stepped aside. Roderick bound Tyrion's wrists. Rain lashed the shutters as Catelyn paid the innkeep with silver and promises of recompense. They dragged Tyrion into the storm. On the threshold he twisted, eyes blazing gold-green in lantern light. This capture is folly, he spat. A pit you dig for yourself. Then I will fill it with truth, she answered. Snow spit in his face, melted to tears. They thrust him onto a horse, bound ankles to stirrups, and rode hard for the eastern road. Night deepened over the neck. Jon lay sleepless in his bedroll, the camp around him hollow where Tyrion's laughter should have been. Benjen conferred with rangers by dim coals. News of the capture traveled swift on raven wings. Lannisters seized, a scout had said, breath ghosting. Lady Stark rides for the Eyrie. Jon's heart churned. If the dwarf was guilty, justice was done. Yet Tyrion had shown him kindness when few did. A good man may do ill, he reasoned, or an ill man good. The world was ice melting to water, shapeless, treacherous. Ghost rose, ears pricked. A distant howl echoed across the bogs. Another direwolf? Jon strained, but the sound faded. At first light, they broke camp in tense silence. Benjen spoke little. His thoughts seemed to stray to the walls' growing unease. Wildlings gathering, dead things stirring. Jon's mind split between northern nightmares he had yet to witness and southern justice he could not reach. On the second night after the capture, a raven flapped into camp, black wings slick with sleet. Benjen untied the message tube, eyes scanning the scrap. His face went white. "What news?" Jon asked. Benjen rolled the parchment, jaw tight. "Robb Stark calls the banners. The North marches." Jon's pulse staggered. "War, perhaps." Benjen looked toward the wall, where sky met land in jagged bruise. "The world tumbles, nephew. We must hold one edge firm." Jon touched Ghost's fur. South of them, across ridges and rivers, he pictured Robb donning mail, Great Jon Umber bellowing, Manderly drums beating. War for Bran's life, for Catelyn's capture of a lion's cub. And Tyrion, jailed in the Eyrie sky cells, perhaps already cursing the wind that moaned through stone teeth. High above the Vale, the Eyrie clung to the pale shoulder of the giant's lance, a castle of moon-pale marble and impossible perches. Snow never left its courtyards. Eagles nested in crevices. The sky itself seemed near enough to shatter with one thrown stone. Here Catelyn presented her prisoner to Lysa Arryn, Lady of the Vale, a woman grown thin and sharp as a broken spear since her husband's mysterious death. Little Robert clung to her skirts, coughing between giggles as he demanded to see the bad little man fly. Lysa received them in the high hall, moonlight flooding through a wall of windows. "Sister," she said, voice a quaver that wavered between welcome and accusation. "You bring strange gifts." "A viper in dwarf skin," Catelyn replied. She produced the Valyrian blade, the lion-stamped parchment. Lysa's eyes widened, then narrowed to slits. Tyrion bowed as best he could with wrists manacled. "Lady Arryn, I was abducted on false charge. I demand trial by combat, as is my right." Robert Arryn squealed delight. "Make him fly, mother. Make him fly." Lysa's lips trembled. "Perhaps the sky will judge quicker than swords." Catelyn stepped forward. "Let him stand trial, sister, before peers." "The sky is peerless," Lysa whispered, but Catelyn's gaze, steel under sorrow, gave her pause. A compromise formed. Tyrion would face judgment. The sky cells would hold him until trial. If he begged combat, the gods would decide. Guards dragged him away. His parting words echoed in the hall like raven cries. "The North bleeds already. Leave it to drown, and the Vale will drown next." Catelyn watched him vanish behind pale doors. Doubt licked her. Thoughts. In his eyes she had seen not guilt, but terror. She shook the whisper away. Bran's memories, the blade, the golden hairs. Proof enough. She would see the lion answer. In the Red Keep of King's Landing, Ned Stark discovered no time to grieve. The city clung to a knee of the Blackwater Rush, walls pink at dusk, alleys reeking of fish and rot. Vipers nested beneath every roof tile. Ned spent days sifting ledgers for truth behind Jon Arryn's death, nights skimming parchments by guttering candle. Through Varys the spider's honeyed whispers, he learned of Catelyn's daring. His heart walked a knife's edge, pride that she chased justice, fear that she cornered doom. When word reached the queen, wildfire sparked behind her emerald gaze. She confronted Robert amid the small council, voice dripping sweet venom. "Your hand's wife has stolen my brother," she proclaimed. "Will you stand idle while Stark spit on crown and court?" Robert glowered but found no ready answer, for guilt of his own crimes weighed him. Drunken king, faithless husband. Beside him, Lord Renly fretted, Grand Maester Pycelle tutade. Littlefinger smirked a silent bet. Ned's presence stifled half-truths. Later, Jaime Lannister sought Ned in the Tower of the Hand. "Return my brother," he said, the words brittle with danger, "or I will carve him from northern hide." "Your brother faces justice," Ned replied. "Ask the gods to temper it." "The gods," Jaime sneered, "care nothing for dwarfs or wolves." He turned, cloak swirling. "The lion roars when cubs cry." Ned's hand closed on Ice's hilt. "Then pray the lion hunts in daylight." In Winterfell, Bran dreamed. He flew above towers, soaring on wings of smoke. Below him a dwarf stood at the base of the broken tower, hands red, weeping. Rising wind became a wolf's howl, became the roar of lions, became his own voice. Remember. He woke to find Maester Luwin adjusting splints on his legs. "Pain bit," he gasped. "Easy, my Prince of Heights," Luwin soothed. "We must test feeling." Bran clenched teeth. The Maester pressed nails along the soles of his feet. Nothing. Higher to the calf numb. Knee dull, distant throb. Mid-thigh sharp. Bran hissed. "Good," Luwin murmured. "We mark progress." Bran stared at the rafters. "I fell. You did. I remember, a push." His voice shook. "A little man." Luwin paused. "Memory is a tricky lantern," he said. "It shines where we least expect. Does it lie? Sometimes it shows what we fear to see, not what was." Bran closed eyes. Fear, or truth? He pictured Tyrion's face twisting in apology before the shove. Yet when he tried to fix the image, it wavered, melted to golden hair, to green eyes, to another. Outside the chamber, summer's day melted snow, water running like secrets in gutters. The raven that carried news from the Eyrie to King's Landing arrived on wings rimed with frost. Ned broke the seal in his solar, heart thudding. Words scrawled by Catelyn's hand. Tyrion captured. Sky cells. Trial soon. Pray for truth. Across the courtyard, gold cloaks drilled with spears. Their new commander Janos slint shouting orders. The city bristled. In a brothel along the street of Silk, Varys whispered of Lannister men gathering coin and blades. War yawned. Ned penned a reply urging caution, dispatching it on swift wings north and east. He then sought Littlefinger, who offered knowledge of gold cloaks for sale, stairwells where spies trod, hidden ledgers listing debts tied to the Iron Bank. Every secret a coin and the cost mounting. That eve, Ned dreamed of Wolf's Den, gray waves smashing against stone, the howl of winter wolves chasing gulls. He woke with name of his sister Lyanna on lips, her blood on petals, Rhaegar's voice haunting. All debts he owed, all vows, all broken. In the dungeons of the Eyrie, Tyrion Lannister shivered behind bars of sky. One wall of the cell ended in open air, floor sloping toward that lethal edge so that each step carried threat of oblivion. The ground miles below glimmered like frost under moon. He wrapped cloak tight, cursed the chill, cursed Catelyn Stark, cursed Bran's unbreaking breath. Each night a jailer brought lamprey pie too cold to eat and mockery too hot to swallow. Tyrion plotted escape, weighed bribes, rehearsed pleas. Memories haunted him. Bran tumbling, Cersei's hiss, Jaime's clenched jaw. On the fifth night, a shadow slunk into the cell. Mord, the turnkey, large as an aurochs, teeth brown as old parchment. He kicked Tyrion awake. "You fly tomorrow, dwarf." "Fly? I lack wings." Tyrion blinked blearily. "Lady Erin's will." Mord grinned. "Little lord wants to see you dance with clouds." Tyrion steadied his voice. "Tell your lady I demand trial by combat." Mord's grin faded. "Trial? It is my right. By the old gods and the new." The jailer scratched his stubbled chin. "I tell him." "Do." Tyrion sat up. "And fetch paper. A rich man's words weigh more written." Upon the high ramparts, Catelyn watched dawn bleed rose across distant peaks. She had not slept. Guilt gnawed the hollows beneath her eyes. In the stillness she saw Bran's face, uncertain, searching, and Tyrion's when the guards seized him. Doubt gnawed. Footsteps approached. Ser Vardis Aegon, captain of the Vale's guard. Lady Arryn grants the dwarf his combat, he said. Catelyn exhaled. An end, then a sharp, terrible end that might close the wound. Who stands for him? He demands a champion. No man yet steps forth. And who will stand for the Vale? I shall, Ser Vardis replied, hand over heart. Catelyn nodded. The gods would weigh shield against shadow. On the morrow, the high hall's floor was carpeted in damp rushes, torches guttering in mountain wind. Catelyn stood beside Lysa's moonstone throne, Roderick at her back. Ser Vardis waited in polished mail, a falcon crest upon his helm. Tyrion entered unshackled yet wary, eyes darting. I name my champion, he announced. To gasps he pointed not to Benjen Stark, who had arrived days before, nor the Sellsword Bran who lounged against a pillar, but to the man in black leathers with mismatched eyes, a minor knight of the Vale famed for cruelty. Ser Lyn Corbray, Tyrion said. Ser Lyn stepped forward, surprise curdling into a hungry grin. I accept. Gasps turned to murmurs. Lyn Corbray was quick, ruthless, but tainted by rumors of boys slaying in the Bloody Gate skirmish.
Ser Vardis Pal.
Lysa's voice rang. You choose ill, dwarf. The gods favor the pure. We shall see whose sins weigh less, Tyrion replied. The duel was brief and brutal. Vardis fought with honor, Corbray with every dishonor. He feinted, spat, kicked a shattered shield into Vardis's knees. Blades flashed. Blood sprayed the moonstone tiles. In the end, Ser Vardis fell, throat opened from ear to ear, silvered mail turning red. Lyn Corbray raised his sword, laughing. The dwarf is free, he shouted. Shock rippled. Lysa shrieked. Robert howled for another fight. But law was law. Tyrion bowed to Catelyn, a mocking flourish. The gods have spoken. She stared, chilled. Was this the gods' verdict? Or blood bought with darker coin? Ser Lyn wiped blade on Vardis's cloak, sheathed, and approached Tyrion. They exchanged quiet words. Coin clinked. Tyrion departed the Eyrie that night, escorted by Bran and half a dozen cutthroats suddenly flush with Lannister gold. Catelyn watched torches snake down the mountain, carrying her certainty away. When ravens bore news to King's Landing, Tyrion freed, Stark banners raised, flames of war roared. Jaime, riding with 200 men, fell upon Ned in the streets, cutting down guards. Ned's leg shattered under horses' panic. His men lay dead. Jaime rode off proclaiming debt paid in blood. King Robert, out hunting, returned to chaos. He roared commands, stripped Jaime of command of the Kingsguard, yet did nothing to punish. Ned saw the pattern. Lions always spared, wolves bled. Bedredden, Ned sent word north. Robb to gather bannermen, hold Moat Cailin. He wrote his resignation as hand. But Littlefinger came with whispers of bastards in brothels, secrets that slew Jon Arryn. Truth will topple queens, he urged. Hold the dagger steady. Ned clutched the parchment. Somewhere beyond city walls, Tyrion raced south, perhaps to join father's host. Catelyn trapped in the Eyrie, Bran crippled in Winterfell, Jon at the wall, Robb preparing for war. All threads knotted around one push. One push. Ned saw the dwarf's hand, the boys fall, the flames burning in Cersei's eyes. Pieces placed on board, all moves chasing that first act of envy or fear. He wondered, if Bran had not climbed that day, had Tyrion not reached just then, how many lives would be spared? But history yields no mercy to questions. Only choices remain. Atop the wall, Jon Snow stood with Lord Commander Mormont, gaze fixed south where stars blinked beyond endless dark. Ravens croaked uneasily. The forest below the ice seemed to whisper betrayal. News of Robb's call to arms reached even here. Brothers muttered of home, of duty. Mormont spoke. When seas boil, walls must hold. Yes, Lord Commander, your family bleeds, yet the realm's end gathers in white shadows. Where will you stand when darkness falls? Jon gripped Ghost's fur. The dire wolf pressed against his hip, silent sentinel. I will stand where I must, Jon said. Far to the south, Tyrion Lannister crossed the Trident at Sharer's Ferry. Bran at his side, thoughts a churn of guilt and survival. War drums beat in hills. Smoke rose from burned farms. He looked north across the water, imagining wolves marching, and whispered, "I never meant the world to burn." Bran spat into the river.
Meningsrot.
Steel endures. Behind them dawn lit the sky red again, a wound unhealed. And so the game, seated by a boy's fall, spread fire across kingdoms, each ember a choice, each blaze a debt, as the first snows of a long night drifted unseen beyond the wall, pale ashes waiting to claim the living and the damned alike. Snowmelt churned the red fork into a snarling bronze serpent that licked at its banks and swallowed the first foals of spring. On its western verge, 42,000 Northmen mustered beneath a sky the color of hammered tin, their campfires burning low and red like scattered embers in an ash field. Robb Stark walked the muddy causeway between pavilions, gray wind ranging astride ahead, ears pricked at every rattle of armor. Horses stamped and whickered. Smiths hammered rivets. Ravens circled the cook fires, waiting for entrails. The boy who had laughed with Bran atop Winterfell's walls was gone. In his place strode a young lord mail-clad to the hips and hollow-eyed from nights without dream. At dawn he convened his captains in the great striped tent lent by Lord Hornwood. The canvas stank of pitch and damp wool. Maps lay weighted with daggers upon a trestle table. Great John Umber boomed demands to cross the Green Fork before Lannister scouts could torch every village eastward. Roose Bolton counseled patience, urging spies to sniff out Tywin's true numbers. The Manderleys offered coin the Karstark's blood. Robb listened, hands clasped behind his back, face still. When at last the voices fell, he spoke low. "Every hour we dither, river folk die. Lord Tywin expects caution. We will give him claws instead." Grey wind's snarl punctuated the vow. The captains filed from the tent bearing fresh orders, their breath hissing white in the sharp dawn. Only Theon lingered, grin tugging at his wind-chapped lips. "You play the game well, Robb. Would that Catelyn were here to see." Robb's gaze flickered. "My mother hunts a truth we all bleed for. Pray she finds it." He dismissed Theon and stepped outside, where the wind carried distant thunder. The drums of House Fry across the ford, beating the cadence of grudging allegiance. Robb lifted his eyes to the south, toward the golden lion he had never seen yet felt stalking every heartbeat since Bran's fall. He laid a hand on Grey Wind's head, drew breath that tasted of cold iron, and began to move the pieces fate had scattered. Tyrion Lannister had always thought the rolling hills of the Riverlands pleasant in early spring, hedges white with blossom, streams chuckling between mossy banks. Now they smoldered. Smoke bruised the horizon, twisting into shapes that reminded him of boyhood nightmares. Giants gnawing castles, dragons birthing flame. His dappled gelding picked a careful path past charred beams and the stone shells of crofters' cottages. Bronn rode behind, expression unreadable save for the glint of new coin at his belt. Ser Lyn Corbray cantered ahead with 2 knights of lesser name, chatting of the tourney glory his blade would reap when the war's first battles passed into song. Tyrion scarcely heard him. Guilt rode pillion, a heavier companion than plate. Every crow that burst from a corpse tree seemed to caw accusation. Liar, kinslayer, kingbreaker. He tugged his cloak tighter though the day was warm. They reached the Golden Tooth by dusk of the 6th day after his flight. The castle rose from the rocky spine like a mailed fist, banners snapping lion gold in the fading light. Spearmen admitted them past a portcullis sharp as a wolf's grin. Inside the yard, companies drilled beneath Tywin Lannister's stern gaze. Tyrion dismounted and bowed as deeply as aching knees allowed. Father regarded him, face a mask cut from pale granite. "I sent 200 riders to escort you from Riverrun," Tywin said. "You arrive with Sel's words and rumors of disgrace." Tyrion brushed dust from his sleeves. "The riders evidently missed the road, my lord. One hears northern steel clutters the river crossings. A problem your folly sharpened." The words fell without heat, yet Tyrion flinched. Tywin's cold anger cut cleaner than Jaime's steel. The folly began when a child climbed a wall, Tyrion replied. I merely lost my balance. A flicker, brief as candle snuff, hinted Tywin understood more than rumor told. He gestured to the keep. Walk! They ascended a stair to a narrow balcony overlooking the mustering field. Campfires budded in the dusk like sullen eyes. Drums thumped. Tywin's cloak billowed, lion clasp gleaming. Did you push the Stark boy? The question came soft. Tyrion's mouth dried. I did. No lie would live under that gaze. Tywin's sigh grated like a millstone. If you wished the realm split asunder, you might have asked politely. I wished him silent. I feared for Cersei and Jaime. And now lions choke on northern spears. Tywin folded hands behind his back. You will undo this. Tyrion laughed, the sound brittle. Shall I lift the boy to walk again? Confession will only sharpen the axe. Then confession dies with you. Tywin turned. You will ride with the vanguard against the Tullus. Show the realm your loyalty in blood. When Riverrun falls, we leverage your valor to barter peace. Valor, Tyrion thought, staring at hands shaped for quills, not swords. If I bleed, who pens the peace terms? Tywin's eyes glittered. Perhaps the dwarf who survives. Inside the Red Keep, sweat trickled down Ned Stark's spine as the noon sun baked the tower stones. He stood before the king's solar table, parchment spread under his palm. The lineage of Robert's children unraveled in stark ink. Baratheon black hair, Baratheon stubborn chin, until Joffrey, Myrcella, Tommen. 3 golden coins minted from incest. Proof enough to topple crowns, if Robert could be made to read between lines. But Robert hunted boar in the Kingswood, chasing oblivion at the point of a spear. When he returned 3 days later, pallor painted his cheeks, drink sour on his breath. He slapped Ned's shoulder with blood-streaked gauntlet. Boar gored Ser Garland. Fine sport. His eyes glazed toward the map of the Riverlands where Lannister lions prowled. War creeps, Ned. I need your counsel. Then hear it. Ned unrolled the parchment. Your children. My children. Robert interrupted, voice cracking. Speak not of them now. The stag's antlers dull. Ned swallowed rage. Tyrion Lannister rides free. Jaime spills Stark blood in your streets. Robb summons Northmen. You must rein your lions. Robert's gaze fell, weary. I reign nothing. The realm reigns me. He wiped brow. Send riders. Command both sides to stand down until word from me. Word means little to those already at sword point. Then fetch me wine, Robert growled. And pray the gods sort cowards from fools. Ned left, the parchment burning in his hand. Outside, the solar Littlefinger lounged against a marble pillar. Heavy secrets, my lord? Deadly, Ned admitted. Littlefinger's smile curved. Careful. Some secrets bite saviors first. He sauntered away, leaving the air smelling of rose oil and menace. In the godswood of Winterfell, April sunlight filtered through budding birch leaves, turning the pool beneath the heart tree into a disk of broken stars. Bran sat propped upon a carved weirwood chair Maester Luwin had fashioned with levers and leather straps that let him wheel along graveled paths. Summer lay at his feet, head upon paws, amber eyes half-lidded. Hodder loomed nearby, humming tunelessly as he gathered fallen branches for the hearth. Bran closed his eyes and tried again. The memory of the tower edge, the roughness of stone beneath his fingers, the sudden nudge at his chest. A dwarf's face flickering between shame and resolve. Yet when he forced the scene to freeze, the face blurred, melted to gold and green, then nothing. He pounded the armrest in frustration. Easy, Luwin said, kneeling with a flask of willow tea. Let the mind breathe. I need truth, Bran whispered. Robb rides to war for me. Mother risks all. Truth will bloom in its season. Luwin pressed the cup to his lips. Bran drank, bitter liquid sliding cold down his throat. That night dream took him again. He soared above a vast battlefield where lions roared and wolves answered. In the center, a dwarf knelt, hands red, begging a weeping boy to rise. Bran swooped lower, wings beating. The dwarf looked up, eyes twin moons, and said, "I'm sorry." Wind howled, ripping the words apart. Bran woke gasping, summer's muzzle on his cheek. He beckoned hotter, demanded he be wheeled to the rookery. There, by lantern light, Bran dictated a message to Maester Luwin. "Father, I remember more each day. The man who pushed me was Tyrion Lannister. I must speak to Mother. Come home." He sealed it with wax bearing the direwolf and watched the raven vanish into star-sprinkled black. Catelyn Stark paced the echoing gallery outside Lysa's bedchamber, skirts whispering like restless ghosts. A squire had delivered word of Riverrun's siege. Tywin massing, Edmure preparing. News that twisted her heart further. She should be at her father's side, at Robb's. Yet here she lingered in a castle of cloud, trapped by sister's grief. Lysa emerged pale and trembling. "They murdered my Vardys," she sobbed. "The gods spurn justice." Catelyn's patience cracked. "The gods demand balance, not vengeance. Release me, sister. Let me ride to Robb. Let me speak with the king." Lysa clutched her arm. "If you go, who protects the Eyrie? The Eyrie stands on rock older than memory. Your fear cages you." Catelyn pried Lysa's fingers free. "I leave at dawn." Lysa's eyes widened. A child denied sweets. "Take the high road and freeze. I will seal the mountain." "Seal yourself, then." Catelyn dipped a curtsy and strode away, heart hammering like smith's iron. That night she and Ser Roderick slipped from the Maiden's Tower with 6 Vale riders sworn to Tully. They descended the mountain in sleet that lashed skin raw, hooves sparking, on stone steps older than dawn age. When at last they reached the base fortress of the Bloody Gate, dawn painted the eastern sky bruised violet. Catelyn turned her gelding toward Riverrun, vows clanging in her chest. To reach her son, to save her father, to see justice done even if the realm shattered. Across ridge and vale battle brewed. At the Mummer's Ford, Ser Gregor Clegane led 300 riders in red cloaks against green farms, torching herricks, hacking down small folk who cried for mercy. Edmure Tully's outriders clashed with them beneath a shower of arrows. The ford ran scarlet, its name reborn. At the Green Fork, Robb Stark's host met Tywin's vanguard in rain so heavy it drowned screams before they left the throat. Grey wind tore men from saddles. Northern axes split gilded helms. Ser Brynden Blackfish led a charge through mud thick enough to swallow hooves, banners sodden, men slipping among bloated corpses. By dusk 5,000 lay dead, yet neither line broke. Night found Robb hunched in his command tent, maps ruined by rain, Theon stripping drenched mail from his shoulders. "Your courage buys us breath," Theon quipped, wringing water from his hair. Robb managed a weary smile. Outside, the wounded moaned under makeshift awnings, and somewhere a boy of 12 sang a lullaby to the headless body of his brother. News from Winterfell arrived the next dawn. Bran's raven. Robb read the words thrice, throat tight. Tyrion's name burned like frostbite. He passed the scroll to the Blackfish, who swore low. "The dwarf among Tywin's ranks," Brynden mused. "If we break his line, seize Tyrion, force confession." Robb's hand fisted. No more children shattered. They devised a plan. A night march north of the river to flank Tywin's camp. Silence and speed. The Great John volunteered his berserkers. Roose Bolton offered his quiet knives. The trap set, they burned no fires that night. The army stealing through willow brakes like wraiths. Gray wind scouting ahead, eyes silver in moonlight. Tyrion lay awake in a silk-lined pavilion, thunder muttering over distant peaks. The smell of wet horse and fear seeped through canvas. Ser Lyn Corbray snored across the central pole, sword within arm's reach even asleep. Bronn gambled outside with sellswords from Myr, coins clinking like dull bells. Sleep eluded Tyrion. He penned a letter to Jaime, sealing it with wax impressed by his signet. "I regret. I ride to battle to atone. If I fall, tell father the debt is paid in full." He tucked it inside his doublet. When horns sounded an hour before dawn, he thought at first it was dream. Then torchlight flickered past the tent flaps, shouts rose, Horses screamed. Bran burst in, steel drawn. Stark wolves among us. Chaos followed. Squires tumbled from bedrolls. Knights scrabbled for helms. Fire arrows streaked overhead, setting supply carts alight. Tywin's main line scrambled to form ranks but found flank empty where Robb's vanguard punched through. In the pandemonium, Tyrion mounted his gelding, heart thundering. He recalled Tywin's order, show valor, and spurred forward, Bronn and 3 hillmen he'd hired forming ragged guard. They entered a maelstrom of mist and screams. A Karstark rider swung a battle-axe at Tyrion's head. He ducked, drove a dagger up under the man's gorget, felt hot rain spatter his face. The gelding reared, kicked another foe. Tyrion clung to the mane, half-blind. Gray wind leapt past, jaws clamping around a Lannister bannerman's throat. Through the swirl of figures, Tyrion glimpsed Robb Stark astride a gray courser, sword blazing in dawnlight. Their eyes met, a heartbeat straining across a gulf of corpses. Robb's mouth shaped silent fury. A spear thrust past Tyrion's shoulder. He pivoted, slashed, felt point scrape ribs. Pain burst. He toppled from the saddle. Mud swallowed him cold. Above, banners thrashed. Direwolf, lion, flayed man, cast adrift in rising smoke. Hands seized him, Bolton men by their pale leech sigil. Chains clamped wrists. He was dragged through muck toward a makeshift corralling pen where prisoners huddled. Rain sheeted down. Somewhere Tywin's horns signaled retreat. The dawn blossomed red over a field of sundered steel. Hours later, Robb entered the prisoner pen flanked by Great Jon and Blackfish. He stopped before Tyrion, face spattered with grime. "Stand." Tyrion struggled upright, legs jelly. "Did you push my brother?" Rain hissed between them. Tyrion's throat ached. "Yes." Robb's sword hung at his side, blood dripping from the wolf-head pommel. A dozen archers waited, bows half-drawn. Tyrion felt sudden calm, as though breath drained out. "Why?" Robb asked. "Fear, envy, protection of secrets." Tyrion met his gaze. "Pick one." Robb inhaled through clenched teeth. "My brother lives, half a man, because of you. The North burns for you. You burn for vengeance. I burn already." Robb turned to the Blackfish, whispered. Brynden nodded, disappeared. "Your life will buy passage," Robb said. "A hostage for peace." Tyrion almost laughed. "Peace died with the first sword drawn. Then may your father value you more than the realm." Robb motioned. Guards hauled Tyrion away, shackles rattling, toward a timber cage lashed to an ox cart. Rain thrummed on the iron roof. Inside the cage, Tyrion pressed forehead to cold bars. Blood seeped from the spear graze. Mud crusted his beard. In the distance, fires guttered, and wolves howled victory. He closed his eyes and saw Bran again, spinning through emptiness. He reached too late. The boy fell forever. Tyrion whispered the apology no ear would grant absolution. In King's Landing, the bells tolled big with sorrow. King Robert, gored by his boar, lay dying. Cersei wept golden tears beside the bed, Jaime at her shoulder, the council arrayed in solemn ranks. Ned Stark knelt, parchment in hand. Roberts will naming him protector of the realm. Cersei took the paper, eyes flashing green malice, and smiled. That night gold cloaks turned upon Stark men in the gatehouses. Swords flashed. Ned fled to the Tower of the Hand, only to find doors barred by the city watch he once commanded. Littlefinger waited in the courtyard, dagger at Ned's throat, whispering, "Some secrets bite saviors first." In the red dawn that followed, Joffrey Baratheon, Lion Cup King, claimed the Iron Throne. Ned Stark knelt before sword points, accused of treason. Sansa wept. Arya vanished. Across the city, 1,000 whispers took flight. Wolves captured, lions roaring, winter rising. On the wall's frosted ramparts, Jon Snow watched dawn paint the sky blood red. Ravens wheeled above, black against crimson. "Storm south," Lord Commander Mormont grunted. "War rides on that wind." Jon's hand tightened on Longclaw's hilt. News of Robb's victory and father's arrest arrived together. Sweet wine soured by venom. Duty bound him here, yet blood sang south. Ghost whined, sensing turmoil. Mormont's weathered hand clapped his shoulder. Night's watch keeps the realm, not thrones. Recall your words, boy. Jon nodded. In his heart storms clashed. Vow and love, ice and fire. Somewhere beyond the horizon his family bled. Somewhere in the haunted forest the others stirred. White shadows whispering death. He stared into the reddening east, where a new sun clawed over jagged mountains, and prayed his choices would matter when the long night came. Catelyn Stark reached Riverrun under banner of truce, weeping as she embraced her father, ravaged by fever yet still lord of his hall. Edmure greeted her with desperate relief, the river's siege broken by Robb's daring flank. Word of Ned's capture struck like a mace blow. Catelyn's cry echoed through stone corridors, and even the Blackfish wiped a tear. They convened a council in the great hall where riverlords argued fury and fear. When the noise swelled, Catelyn struck the high table with open palm. We ride to King's Landing. We trade the dwarf for my lord husband. Lions value kin above honor. Robb's raven arrived that night. I hold Tyrion. Father is charged with treason. Bring every sword. Catelyn read the words by torchlight until they blurred. She folded the parchment, fire reflecting in her eyes. We ride to war, she whispered, and the decision settled like iron in her bones. In his cage, rattling south toward Riverrun, Tyrion listened to cartwheels creak and chains jingle. Guards joked about bounties on Lannister heads. Every bump jarred his wound. He expected fear, but found blank exhaustion. Rain seeped through cracked planks, dripping onto his lashes. At midnight, the cart halted. Voices low, Bolton men conferring. Tyrion strained to hear. Robb presses east. Lord Roose rides reserve. Footsteps approached. The cage door swung. A gaunt man leaned in, torchlight carving hollows in his cheeks. My lord wishes to treat, he hissed. Confession buys comfort. Tyrion forced a grin. Comfort died with my honor. Tell Bolton he bargains with smoke. The man's lips curled. We bargain with skin. He wrapped the bars shut, and the cart lurched on. Tyrion exhaled. Somewhere in the dark, he sensed another cage. A boy named Bran bound in forgotten bedclothes, climbing endless towers of dream. Their fates twined like barbs of the same bloody rose, petals falling across 7 kingdoms now aflame. He leaned back, closed aching eyes, and began to plan. Words were swords, he had forged sharper. If wolves and lions would shred the realm, perhaps the dwarf who broke it might yet stitch patchwork peace. If only he could bleed the truth before truth bled him dry. Outside, thunder rolled, and over distant hills a wolf's howl rose, long and lonely, answered by another and another, until the night was thick with the mourning of beasts who sensed winter no longer crept but charged, bearing teeth of iron and breath of frosted fire. Stone dust drifted through the cavernous belly of the great September like pale motes of memory, disturbed only by the shuffling of slippered feet and the rasp of a single breath drawn too sharp in the hush. The stranger's light, cold and lambent, poured through rose-glass windows smashed by the riot 2 nights past, striping the cracked marble floor with slanted bars of ghostly color. Violet, crimson, emerald, sapphire, a slow-turning kaleidoscope cast by dawn. Where once candles blazed, only soot-dark stumps remained, drooping like failed rebukes. A gilded icon of the warrior lay toppled beside the altar, its helm caved, one arm snapped clean. A priest in sackcloth knelt, gathering scattered rubies into trembling palms as though the gems might absolve the vanities they had adorned. Sansa Stark saw none of it. Spider-thin exhaustion dulled every sense that was not fear. She clutched a damp scrap of velvet at her breast. Once the corner of a cloak Joffrey had flung over her shoulders on their first promenade along the river, before the bells, before steel flashed, before her father knelt and the world unraveled, and tried to breathe without trembling. Each breath tasted of incense burned days ago, now stale as a shattered vow. Behind her, Ser Marentrant's boots clicked deliberate echoes across the transept, escorting her toward the high altar where Queen Regent Cersei waited like a lioness on a sun-baked ridge, motionless save the twitch of a single finger against the arm of her chair, yet poised to strike. "Come, child," the queen commanded, voice low but carrying. A dozen gold cloaks flanked her, spears grounded, visors closed. Sansa wondered if she might count their hearts thrumming beneath lacquered steel and fix her own to their rhythm. She stepped closer, skirts whispering over marble dust, and curtsied as best she could. Bones in her knees felt brittle. Cersei studied her a long moment, emerald eyes gleaming in the broken light. "You have not slept, I see." The words were not entirely unkind, yet neither did they soften. "Nor eaten." Sansa opened her mouth. Only air escaped. The queen rose. Her morning gown, black silk pin-pricked with jet, flowed like ink about her ankles. She reached to brush a stray strand of auburn hair from Sansa's cheek, a gesture almost motherly, save that her fingers trembled with some contained violence. "I have need of you, sweetling," she murmured. "Of your courage." Sansa thought of her father shackled beneath the Red Keep, of letters smuggled in pies that never reached, of Arya lost in the city's throat. Courage tasted of ashes. "What would you have me do, your grace?" Cersei's lips curved, an echo of warmth quickly smothered. "I would have you right your brother, Robb." The name fluttered inside her chest like a bird behind bars. "Right what?" "That if he values Eddard Stark's life, he must lay down his sword. The North will bend the knee, pledge fealty to his grace King Joffrey, and—" She drew breath, betraying strain. "Return the dwarf my father appointed to guard you." The words hung thick as incense. Sansa pictured Robb clad in mail, hair darkened by sweat, eyes flinty. She could almost feel the cold northern air blowing across banners she had never seen but dreamed of nightly. "He will listen to me?" she whispered. "Brothers listen to sisters. Mothers, sometimes, but always sisters." Something flickered behind Cersei's eyes. A memory, perhaps, of Jaime's laughter in days when innocence still seemed possible. She took Sansa's hand, guiding her to a low writing desk set before a desecrated statue of the crone. Parchment weighted, quill sharpened, inkwell full. A blot of ink had dried dark as congealed blood on the desk's edge. Sansa sank upon the stool. Quill felt heavy. "If I refuse?" The queen's smile hardened. "Then the realm bleeds for naught, and your father with it." She signaled Ser Meryn. He unfolded a roll of vellum depicting charges of treason, lists of Stark bannermen slain in the streets, tallies of children trampled when bread carts overturned. "Right?" she repeated. Ink scratched parchment. "Dear Lord Robb." The script wavered. Tears blurred letters. Sansa thought of her father reciting the words of House Stark. "Winter is coming." She wrote instead, "I am safe. Father lives. I beg you, for love of mother, for the memory of Bran's laugh, for our home beneath the snows, please come to King's Landing in peace. Lay down your swords." She finished, sealed with a shaky direwolf she drew herself. When she passed it to Cersei, the queen did not read, merely nodded to a waiting courier who vanished like a single arrow shot into gathering storm. In the silence that followed, Sansa heard her own heartbeat. Cersei brushed knuckles across her jaw, gentle. "The gods test us, child," she whispered. "Pray they find you worthy." Across the breadth of Westeros, in the damp cellars beneath Riverrun's eastern barbican, Tyrion Lannister lay on a pallet of straw listening to river water lap against limestone foundations. A rat skittered across his ankle. He did not flinch. His wound oozed, wrapped poorly by a Karstark leech physician too hurried to linger. Candle stubs guttered in iron brackets, each flame a timid dancer dwarfed by cavern gloom. Footsteps approached, 2 sets, 1 limping. Keys clinked. The cell door groaned wide. Torchlight revealed Robb Stark framed in archway, gray wind at heel, eyes silver-green in the flicker. Behind them shuffled Roose Bolton, pale as a corpse, pink eyes gleaming. Tyrion sat up, jaw clenched against pain. "Welcome, young wolf. Come to savor your prize." Robb's expression remained carved granite. "I have read Sansa's letter." He passed parchment through bars. It pleads for your return. Tyrion skimmed lines. Touching. Cersei's hand prints remain. I smell ash and arrogance. You will write answer. Robb produced quill and parchment. Tell your sister my father lives and will remain so when mine does. Tyrion raised brow. And if I refuse? Bolton stepped forward, slipping leather glove from his left hand. Under torchlight, his nails shone knife-sharp. I am fond of persuasion, he murmured. Tyrion swallowed. Quill, then. He penned swiftly, choosing each word as though spinning thread for a noose. Beloved sister, I remain guest of Robb Stark, hale and ill-treated. I urge mercy. Release Lord Eddard. Trade blood for words. Winter spares no one. He signed with flourish, folded, sealed with wax moistened in his own spit. When he passed it through bars, Robb nodded once. The North remembers, Robb said. Remember too. Tyrion watched him leave, Bolton trailing silent. Alone with the rat, he exhaled. He had gambled lives on a single push. Now thousands marched beneath banners spattered by his guilt. He stared at the dark and let imagination spin futures. One where Bran walks again, where Robb yields, where Ned Stark sits as hand to a king unpoisoned by incest. Each vision crumbled. The world moved with the weight of unforgiven deeds. Far north, beyond the ragged edges of any map Jon Snow had studied, the haunted forest whispered with the sound of ice cracking beneath weight. Rangers moved in silence through blue-shadowed pines, crossbows cocked. The old bear rode at point, his great cloak swirling like a thunderhead. Jon followed, ghost padding invisible yet present, red eyes scanning gloom. They had ridden a league from Craster's keep before the raven descended. It landed upon Jon's saddlehorn, feathers ruffled, croaking a single word. Fire. Mormont's brow furrowed. Send it, he told the bird, and it lifted again, winging south. Jon thought of Maester Aemon's stories. Ravens speak omens when men refuse to listen. An hour later, they found the corpses. Rangers from Ser Jeremy Ricker's ranging, missing for 6 days, lay arranged in a clearing like petals around a black rose. 5 bodies, eyes wide, skin pale as new snow, entrails coiled upon chests in looping sigils that glimmered hoarfrost under dawn. No tracks marred the snow between them and the surrounding trees. What hand carves such ruin? Samwell Tarly whispered, voice quivering. Not hand, muttered Corran Halfhand, crouching to study sigils. Nor beast we name. Jon knelt beside a fallen brother, a lad from White Harbor known for gentle songs at nightfire. Frost rhymed his lashes, lips parted in a silent note. Jon touched his cheek, hard as stone. Ghost growled low, hackles rose. From the forest's edge came a sound like shards of glass poured into iron, ice and bone clacking. A shape glided between trunks, tall, gaunt, armored in frozen mist, eyes glowing cerulean. Another behind it, and more. Form line, Corran barked. Steel hissed out. Jon drew Longclaw. Valyrian steel shimmered. All other blades looked dull as tin. The first other stepped into light. Sound died. In that frozen hush, Jon remembered Bran's face in dreams, whispering across leagues. The dead walk. He tightened grip. Mormont's command cut the silence. Fire. Rangers loosed flaming arrows. Orange streaks whipped through air, sputtered out against unnatural cold before touching their targets. Laughter, like ice cracking underfoot, echoed. The others swept forward. Jon met one halfway, Longclaw clashing against a crystal sword. Shock numbed his arm. Sparks of blue-white flew. Ghost leapt, teeth flashing, but the other skewered only snow, vanishing and reappearing with impossible grace. Steel sang again. Jon staggered. Behind him, Sam muttered prayer to the Seven and hurled a leather satchel of wildling dragonglass darts toward the fight. One clattered at Jon's boot as he dodged a slash that shaved a lock of hair. Desperate, he dropped to a knee, snatched the dagger, drove it upward into the other's thigh. The thing screamed, a shattering sound that split ice. It burst into shards, swirling snow. Silence followed, broken by ghost. This howl. The remaining others recoiled, then melted into trees. Jon stood gasping. Mormont surveyed the clearing. 2 rangers down, frostbitten but alive. Sam whimpered but clutched another obsidian blade. Corrin nodded grim approval. "We ride for the wall," Mormont said. "The realm must know." Jon wiped his sword. Memory of Bran again brushed mind. In his dream wings, warning of shadows longer than walls. War South seemed petty now. Night herself marched. Riverrun's great hall rang with the clang of chains as Tyrion Lannister stood before Lord Hoster Tully's high seat, flanked by a dozen mailed guards. Robb sat to his uncle's right, Catelyn to the left, face gaunt from sleepless weeks. The River Lord, wasted and bedridden, listened from a wheeled chair, blankets piled to chin, eyes roomy yet bright as polished garnet. "Lord Robb proposes exchange," announced Edmure, voice taut. "The dwarf for Eddard Stark." Murders murmured among river lords. Great Jon Umber slammed fist upon table. "Trade wolf for vermin? Better flay him and send his hide." "Flanks my banner," Bolton remarked softly. Few laughed. Catelyn lifted hand. "My husband's life is coin enough." "Father," she turned to Hoster. "What say you?" The old lord rasped. "Blood must wash blood, yet peace buys sons." He coughed hard, specks of crimson flecking cloth. "Trade." Great Jon growled but bowed head. Robb exhaled, tension easing. "We sail by night to Storm's End. Renly commands enough knights to take King's Landing if we open River Gate." Edmure frowned. "Renly names himself king." Robb's eyes hardened. "Let him crown his own head. My realm is north, my goal my father." All turned to Tyrion. "You will write your sister," Robb said. "Instructing the exchange is to take place at the Twins within 10 days. Tyrion inclined head. "I will pen sweetest verse." He shifted. "And your message should include this. The North holds 2 cards now, myself in war. Only one need be played." Robb's jaw tightened. "Do not mistake courtesy for mercy." Tyrion bowed, heart hammering. In truth, he doubted Cersei would trade, pride thicker than blood. Yet in every gamble lay cracks. He must widen them. In King's Landing, bells tolled over Blackwater Bay to mourn Robert Baratheon. The stag felled by boar, rumored drugged wine, whispered Queen's kiss. Bonfires burned along Mud Gate. Smoke veiled the river. On the Iron Throne sat 16-year-old Joffrey I, crown too large for soft brow, eyes glittering with cruelty new-minted. Ned Stark knelt before him, wrists manacled, gaunt from days in darkness. Sansa stood beside the throne, pale as candle, eyes hollow. Before the assemblage of nobles and small folk, Grand Maester Pycelle unrolled a parchment describing treason most foul. Ned's plot to usurp crown in favor of Stannis. Littlefinger's voice coaxed crowd. Betrayal, deception, dishonor. When Pycelle finished, Joffrey rose. Lord Stark would speak?
Ned lifted weary gaze.
In crowd he saw Arya. No, a street urchin vanish. He thought of Bran, of Winterfell, of the words he had sworn before gods would pools. "I confess," he said, voice cracking. A gasp rippled. "I plotted against King Joffrey's rightful claim. I ask mercy." Cersei's eyes widened. This had not been arranged. Joffrey smiled. "Mercy," he repeated. "Mother says mercy is the privilege of monarchs." He glanced at Sansa. Tears traveled her cheeks. "All the realm shall see a king's justice." Ser Island Payne stepped forth, sword taller than Sansa. Ned's breath hitched. He met his daughter's eyes. "Let it be," he whispered. But Joffrey's next words twisted the blade. "Bring me the dwarf. I would see Lannister blood weigh against Stark treason." Cersei's face blanched. Even Pycelle paled. "Your Grace, Tyrion is hostage." "Then fetch Eddard's head." The boy king snapped, voice breaking like glass. Sansa fainted. City erupted in screams. Ned closed eyes, thought of snowflakes on weirwood branches.
Cerilin Swan.
Steel flashed. 7 ravens bore 7 messages. One for each corner of turmoil that night. At dawn, Robb Stark stood on battlements of Riverrun, scroll crushed in fist. Joffrey executed Lord Eddard. His roar echoed across courtyards, louder than any war horn. In the Great Hall, Riverlords argued for vengeance. Great John bellowed Robb King in the north and others took up cry. Tyrion learned of the beheading in his cell, from Bolton's soft murmur. "Condolences, my lord. Your sister's mercy lacked." The words sliced deeper than any whip. He pressed forehead to cold stone, and for the first time since childhood he wept without wit to shield him. Catelyn's scream shattered hush of corridors. She fell beside Hoster's bed, sobbing. The old man stroked her hair with trembling hand and whispered the Tully words. Family, duty, honor. They sounded like nails in wood. In Winterfell, Bran lay silent, staring at ceiling beams. When Maester Luwin broke news, Bran turned face to wall, Summer nuzzling his limp hand. Somewhere far in dream, a three-eyed raven beat wings, cawing grief. Atop the wall, Jon crumpled beneath weight of raven scroll. Tears froze on lashes. The old bear clasped his shoulder. "You are the realm's shield now, boy." Jon looked south, fists clenched, then north where others marched. Heart screamed to ride for Robb. Oath bound him in ice. In Dragonstone, Stannis Baratheon read Ned's final confession and burned it. "False words to salve pride," he muttered. He wrote letters naming Joffrey bastard, Robert's children born of incest, and sealed each with fiery heart. War would have another king. Beyond the narrow sea, Daenerys Targaryen cradled a dragon's egg, felt warmth pulse through shell, and dreamed of thrones cast down like broken towers. Night fell over Riverrun, black and absolute. In the deepest gloom of the dungeon, Tyrion heard keys rattle. Torchlight spilled. Roose Bolton entered alone. His pale smile chilled the air. "My lord," Bolton said, "the young wolf needs your father's head. You are leverage no longer." Tyrion's heart stuttered. "You would flay me? Not I." Bolton stepped aside. Two hooded men slid in, leather kits clinking. Tyrion forced steady breath. "I can still bring peace," he rasped. "Let me write." Bolton considered, head tilted. "Words slid from you before like grease off roast. They did little." "Catelyn," Tyrion grasped at straws. "She loved Ned. She will heed me." "Catelyn Stark sails for White Harbor with her father's bones," Bolton said. "Her heart is stone now." A hooded man produced a thin blade glowing orange from brazier. Tyrion's stomach lurched. He recalled every taunt he had hurled at cripples, at cowards, at maesters who bled leeches. Now he would pay in screams. A horn blared outside, echoing through corridors. One, twice, thrice. Alarm. Bolton stiffened. Metal boots thundered overhead. The hooded men hesitated. Door burst inward. Sergeant in umber colors shouted, "The Lannisters attack! Night raid from river! We need blades!" Bolton cursed, gestured men out. He paused at threshold. Fate twists. He met Tyrion's gaze. "Live or die, dwarf. Remember who stayed hand." He vanished. Tyrion sank to knees, heart pounding. Outside, clamor surged. Clash of steel, screams, barking orders. Torches wheeled. Smoke drifted through bars. He crawled to barred window, peered. Flames licked siege towers along riverbank. Lions charged up earthen ramp under starlight. Wolves met them with iron. Wild laughter rang. Ser Lyn Corbray, unchained during confusion, carving path with Lady Forlorn. Iron keys hung from belt of a slain guard. Tyrion reached. Keys scraped stone but fell out of grasp. He cursed, stretched. Another body toppled, twitching. Keys clinked closer. He snagged them, trembling. Lock clicked. Door schwung. Smoke thickened corridor. Tyrion limped. Dagger scavenged from fallen man, navigating chaos. He emerged into courtyard where lanterns burned blue-white from wildfire pots hurled by unseen catapults. Night glowed wicked emerald. Screams of men ablaze filled air. Above all horns blared retreat for both sides, battle devolving into burning frenzy. Amid confusion, Tyrion spotted a riderless horse. He scrambled, hauled himself astride with agony. Bran galloped past, bloodied but grinning, saw him, wheeled. "Thought you cooked," Bran shouted. "Escape first, jest later," Tyrion gasped. They rode through postern gate breached by Lannister sappers, across trampled barley, into night. Behind them, Riverrun's south tower burned like a funeral pyre. Wolves and lions tore each other in silhouette. At River's edge they reined in, breath pluming. Tyrion swayed, wound pulsing. Bran pressed rag to ribs. "Where now, imp?" Tyrion stared across dark water toward south. Harrenhal's broken towers, then farther, to King's Landing where Father's armies converged. He thought of Ned's headless body, of Bran's shattered spine, of a realm bleeding for his push. "We go to war," he whispered, "and to truth wherever she hides." 200 leagues east, Catelyn Stark knelt on the deck of the Galley River Maiden as dawn blossomed pink over the bight. Hoster Tully's coffin, bound in river rushes and fragrant cedar, awaited burial in Riverrun's crypts. But her eyes fixed south, where smoke plumed from hearths she would never again see domestic. Ned was gone. Her son would be king or corpse. She felt hollow as the shell of a summer cicada. Maester Vyman approached. "Raven from Winterfell, my lady." She broke seal with trembling fingers. Bran's careful hand. "I dreamed of crows too white to be snow, and men of ice who walked under moon. Jon rides north, Robb rides south. Tell mother I am not broken, only changed." She pressed letter to lips, tears slipping. A breath later she composed herself. Stark now more than Tully. "Alter course," she told Captain. "White Harbor can wait. We sail for Moat Cailin. The north needs its mother." Atop a ridge west of Harrenhal, Tywin Lannister surveyed the ruin of Riverrun smoldering across the river. He did not smile at partial success. Partial offended him. Yet Tyrion lived, messages from scouts said, escaped with Bran. That flicker of relief he crushed beneath iron will.
Ser Kevan approached.
Ravens confirm Robert's bastard in the city rallied small folk. Riot quelled, but stores burned. Cersei begs food. Tywin gestured to wagons of grain captured in raid. "Send half to King's Landing. Sell remainder to Stormlands. Stannis will need bread for siege he wages." He studied rising sun. "Summon the great council of lords paramount. We end this war before snow falls. But Stark boy will bleed. We break him at the twins." Tywin's eyes gleamed. "A wedding gift awaits." He turned to maps spread on table. Swords like chess pieces, names inked in red. One piece, small, carved of weirwood, represented Tyrion. Tywin moved it westward across the board, toward a carved lion throne at center. His voice dropped to whisper, "All debts paid." In the Riverlands marsh, hidden beneath weeping willows, Arya Stark sharpened needle by moonlight. Gendry stoked tiny fire. Lami coughed. Across the embers sat a boy who claimed to be Aerie. A boy no more than she, but his eyes glinted Lannister gold. Hot Pie snored. Jaqen Hagar watched them all through tangles of red hair, shackled wrists resting on knees, smiling secret smile. Arya tested blade. In her mind she recited names. Joffrey, Cersei, Meryn Trant, Island Payne, Tywin Lannister, and now a new one, Roose Bolton, Whisperer of Flays. She added a name she did not yet know, whoever swung the sword that took her father. Each repetition forged resolve sharper than needle's point. "We move at dawn," Yoren whispered. "North to Snowgate. Night's watch will keep you." Arya touched the steel hidden beneath boy's jerkin. "North," she echoed, though her heart burned south. She closed eyes, saw a dire wolf loping across frozen river, howling at crimson moon, and she felt no fear, only the pull of wild blood, the promise of winter's wrath. East of Karth, on the red waste's edge, Daenerys Targaryen held a dragon hatchling against her breast. Black scales shimmered opal in firelight. Its breath warmed her cheek. Jorah Mormont knelt, sword planted tip down. Dothraki gathered in silent circle, fear and wonder mixed. "The world burns," Jorah murmured. looking west as though seeing beyond the horizon. Westeros drowns in its own blood. Khaleesi. A dragon's fire may forge new order. Daenerys gazed into tiny eyes sleeping. Fire began with a push, she said softly, though she knew not how she knew. I will fly beyond pushes and falls. I will soar. The dragon chirred, wings unfurling. Night descended over 7 kingdoms in silence deeper than raven's wingbeat. Fires crackled in camps, in castles, in farmsteads torched by marauders. Children dreamed of snow and wolves and dragons. Men sharpened swords dulled by friends' blood. Women wept into empty beds. Far north, on Skirling Pass, Jon Snow raised spyglass to horizon. Auroras flickered green and violet above the wall, yet beneath them marched shapes blacker than night. 1,000 shadows, eyes like blue comet tails. He lowered glass, heart heavy. They come, he told Corrin, and the realm squabbles. Half-hands spat. We hold, or all falls. Jon looked south once more, imagining Robb's banners, Sansa's tears, Arya's defiance, Bran's broken yet unbowed will. He thought of Tyrion, whose jest toppled empires, of Cersei, whose pride crushed mercy, of Joffrey, king of ashes, and he drew sword, felt cold steel bite palm. Night gathers, he whispered. The words rose into wind, carried across forests, over rivers bright with flame, into halls of power where lords plotted vengeance. They echoed through dreams of boys who became men too soon, of girls who traded songs for blades. Winter crept no longer, estrode beneath banners of snow and sorrow. At its vanguard walked a dwarf's guilt, a king's cruelty, a boy's fall unending, footsteps that shook the land until even the dead roused to listen.